The Black Death, a chilling name for a terrifying disease. The Black Death was not just a medical condition, it was a harbinger of doom that left an indelible mark on the psyche of Europe. Imagine Europe in the 1340s, a land of knights and castles, bustling towns and serene countryside. It was a time of knights and castles, but it was also a time of great suffering. The Black Death brought unimaginable pain and despair to the people. This suffering had a name, the Black Death. It was a plague that knew no boundaries, affecting rich and poor alike. It was a plague, a disease so deadly it swept across Europe like a silent storm. No one was safe from its reach. People lived in fear, never knowing if they would wake up the next day. The uncertainty and dread were palpable. The plague first appeared in Europe in 1347, brought over on ships from the east. These ships carried more than just goods, they carried death. It struck quickly and without mercy. Entire families were wiped out in a matter of days. People called it the Great Pestilence or the Black Death because of the dark, painful spots it left on the skin. These spots were a sign of impending doom. Imagine waking up one day with a fever, chills and aches all over. The symptoms were relentless and terrifying. Then you notice these terrible, dark boils on your body. These boils were not just painful, they were a death sentence. That was the grim reality for millions during the Black Death. The scale of suffering was unimaginable. The plague spread rapidly, carried by fleas that lived on rats. These tiny creatures were the unwitting harbingers of death. These rats thrived in the dirty, crowded cities of medieval Europe. The conditions were perfect for the plague to spread. Imagine living in a time with no proper sanitation, where rats scurried through the streets. The filth and squalor were unimaginable. It was the perfect breeding ground for disease. The Black Death thrived in these conditions, spreading like wildfire. The Black Death was a death sentence for many, and its arrival marked a dark chapter in human history. It changed the course of Europe forever, leaving a legacy of fear and sorrow. The Black Death was so deadly because people didn't understand how it spread. They were unaware of the mechanisms of disease transmission, which made it nearly impossible to protect themselves. They didn't know that tiny fleas carried the disease, so they continued living their lives as usual. The lack of knowledge about the role of fleas and rats in spreading the plague meant that people couldn't take effective measures to stop it. Imagine not knowing why your loved ones were getting sick and dying. The sense of helplessness and despair must have been overwhelming as families watched their members fall ill one by one. It was a time of great fear and confusion. People were desperate for answers, but the lack of scientific understanding left them grasping at straws. The plague was caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis. This deadly bacterium wreaked havoc on the human body, leading to severe symptoms and often death. This bacterium lived in rodents, particularly rats, and was transmitted to humans through flea bites. The close proximity of humans and rats in medieval towns facilitated the rapid spread of the disease. Today we understand bacteria and viruses, but back then they were a mystery. The lack of knowledge about microorganisms meant that people had no idea what they were up against. People believed in things like bad air or God's wrath as though the cause of the plague. These beliefs led to various ineffective and sometimes harmful practices in an attempt to ward off the disease. Without proper sanitation and medical knowledge, the plague spread like wildfire. The crowded and unsanitary conditions of medieval towns created a perfect breeding ground for the disease. People were dying faster than they could be buried. The sheer number of deaths overwhelmed the capacity to manage the dead, leading to mass graves and a constant state of mourning. Imagine the smell, the fear, the desperation in the air. The atmosphere was thick with the stench of death and the palpable sense of dread. The Black Death was a stark reminder of how vulnerable humans are to the invisible forces of nature. It highlighted the importance of scientific understanding and the need for advancements in medical knowledge. Surviving the Black Death was a matter of luck, but some practices did offer a sliver of protection. Imagine yourself back then, armed with these tips against the invisible enemy. First, avoid sick people. This seems obvious now, but back then they didn't know how diseases spread. Quarantining the sick was a crucial step, even if they didn't fully understand why. Second, keep clean. While they didn't have soap like we do today, they could still wash their hands and bodies with water and vinegar. Third, be careful what you eat. Make sure your food is clean and cooked properly. Food could be contaminated, so this was vital for survival. Fourth, pray. Many people turned to their faith for comfort and protection. While not a scientific solution, it gave them hope and strength. The Black Death might seem like a distant horror, but it holds striking parallels to modern health crises. Just like COVID-19, the Black Death showed us how quickly a disease can spread globally, bringing entire societies to a standstill. Think about the lockdowns during COVID-19. People were isolated in their homes, much like people during the Black Death avoided contact to survive. The fear, the uncertainty, the scramble for a cure, these were all echoes of the past. Both eras witnessed the spread of misinformation and the struggle to combat an invisible enemy. Just like we developed vaccines and treatments, medieval people tried to find ways to protect themselves. The Black Death, like any pandemic, exposed the fragility of human life and the importance of public health measures. Section 5. Flight and refuge, seeking safety in a time of plague. When the Black Death ravaged towns and villages, fleeing seemed like the only option for some. The fear of the unknown and the desperation to survive drove many to abandon their homes and communities. Imagine the fear that gripped people, prompting them to pack their belongings and leave their homes in search of safety. The decision to leave was not taken lightly, as it meant leaving behind everything familiar. Some sought refuge in the countryside, hoping the fresh air and open spaces would offer protection. They believed that distance from the crowded, infected cities might save them from the deadly disease. Others embarked on pilgrimages, seeking solace and divine intervention in holy places. They hoped that faith and prayer might provide a shield against the relentless spread of the plague. Families were torn apart, some reuniting, while others faced the heartbreaking reality of losing loved ones along the way. The emotional toll was immense, as the bonds of family were tested by the harsh circumstances. The roads were filled with travelers, each carrying their own tales of loss and desperation. The journey was arduous, with many facing hunger, exhaustion, and the constant threat of the plague. These journeys were fraught with danger. Bandits, wild animals, and the ever-present risk of infection made every step perilous. The plague travelled with them, lurking in crowded shelters and along the paths they took. No place was truly safe, and the spectre of death loomed large over every refuge. While escape offered a glimmer of hope, it was a gamble with uncertain outcomes, a testament to the lengths people went to survive. The resilience and determination of those who fled are a poignant reminder of the human spirit's will to endure. Section 6. Medieval misconceptions, flawed remedies and superstitions. In the absence of scientific understanding, medieval people often turned to flawed remedies and superstitions to combat the Black Death. Imagine a world without modern medicine, where fear and desperation fueled strange practices. Doctors, with their limited knowledge, prescribed bloodletting and leeches, believing it would balance the body's humours. People wore amulets and charms, hoping to ward off evil spirits they believed caused the plague. Fragrant herbs and flowers were believed to purify the air, while self-flagellation was a desperate act of religious penance. Some even resorted to blaming and persecuting marginalized groups, like Jews, reflecting the darkness that can grip humanity in times of crisis. These practices, while well-intentioned, often did more harm than good. The Black Death exposed the limitations of medieval medicine and the human tendency to seek control in the face of the unknown. Section 7. Resilience and rebirth, life after the Black Death. The Black Death, despite its devastation, did not spell the end for Europe. Just as spring follows the harshest winter, life began to bloom again amidst the ruins. Imagine a world slowly healing, rebuilding from the ashes of a catastrophe. With a reduced population, labor became more valuable, leading to social and economic shifts. The feudal system, already weakening, began to crumble, paving the way for new social structures. Survivors inherited land and opportunities, reshaping the social fabric of Europe. Art and literature reflected the themes of death and rebirth, capturing the collective trauma and resilience of the age. The Black Death, while a tragedy, also served as a catalyst for change, leading to a period of transformation and renewal. Section 8. Lessons from the Grave, the Black Death's enduring relevance. Centuries after the Black Death, its echoes still resonate, offering valuable lessons for our modern world. Imagine the stories whispered through time, urging us to learn from the past. The plague underscored the importance of public health measures, from sanitation to disease surveillance. It highlighted the interconnectedness of humanity, demonstrating how quickly a disease can transcend borders and impact the entire globe. Moreover, it emphasized the need for scientific understanding and critical thinking in combating misinformation and fear. The Black Death serves as a stark reminder of human vulnerability, urging us to invest in healthcare systems, support scientific research, and prioritize global health security. Its legacy lies in the lessons learned and the ongoing efforts to prevent history from repeating itself. Section 9. Conclusion: a legacy of loss and learning. The Black Death, a dark chapter in human history, left an indelible mark on the world. It serves as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating power of disease. But from the ashes of tragedy, humanity rose again, adapting, innovating, and rebuilding. The Black Death compels us to reflect on our own mortality and the importance of collective action in the face of global challenges. It reminds us to value scientific knowledge, prioritize public health, and approach the unknown with both caution and courage. Let us honor the memory of those lost by learning from the past and forging a future better equipped to face the challenges